You are listening to Chai with the CEO, a Random Genius Media original.
Some folks follow the script, some flip the script, and then there's Shariq Patel, who probably greenlit the script, promoted it on FM, got it on screen, and now wants to build the next platform to stream it. From the airwaves of Go 92.5 FM to the studio halls of Zee and the startup trenches of Trigno Media, today we spill the chai with a man who's done it all, with caffeine, calm, and creative chaos. Welcome, Shariq, to the hot seat where we serve questions stronger than your double espresso.
Uh, Thank you so much, Sheldon. It's a pleasure to be here and good to have be having chai with you on this nice rainy afternoon.
Yes. And I should remember not to shake or scratch my face. Those are notes from my producers. So if you see that happening, you can just raise the hand. Okay. I
Okay,
need I need your help. I tell all my guests that. So I
done.
also have it
I will
written on my table.
I will behave like the director of this
Yes,
podcast.
of
So
this
it's me
podcast.
theory.
Take control of it. So wear your hat. Wear
Yes,
your
yes,
producer's hat.
done.
So mandatory chai,
Cheers.
some love, chai, right? Cheers.
Uh,
Chais to that. So let's jump into it. First question. You started your career making radio sexy. Be honest, was it just an excuse to avoid shaving every morning?
You made me shave today, this morning. I mean, after a long time, I've had to, since I was going to be facing the camera for Chai with the CEO. No, so I
Correct.
think I didn't start with radio. I think we met
Correct.
during my radio stint. The journey before radio was fairly steady, and then went into full tumultuous mode before hitting on to radio. So let me just talk about that. So graduated from NMIMS in '96, and then got placed. Out of campus in a bank of all places. For 4 years, from 96 to 2000, I was in a place called Export Import Bank of India, EXIM Bank, looking at balance sheets and going through project reports and everything from ports to steel plants to
Wow.
all kinds of cold storages. A whole bunch of these different projects would come. And as a junior analyst, our job was to go through the project report and write it out, type out the entire thing, go through the balance sheet, get all the ratios, see if all the ratios that we had learned in finance in business school were making sense or not. And yeah, so I did that for 4 years. And then 2000 is when there was this new thing which I don't know if you heard of or not. It was called the internet, which was going to be booming. There
Hmm.
were these
Way
tons
before my time. Way
yeah,
before my time.
way before your time. And there were these tons of these what were called internet companies emerging, everything from Rediff to Yahoo. Yahoo came a bit later, but I went through two of them. First one was a company called Chai Time, which had a promise of $25 million funded by some big VCs. That flamed out in 6 months. So I left this very cushy job that my dad was so happy that I got this nice, great, stable government job,
Permanent job. Permanent job.
permanent job. And
Yes.
in fact, my batchmates, one batch senior to me now, Harsha was there. She's currently the CMD of EXIM Bank. So if I'd continued, I would have been fighting with her for that spot 28 years later. But I decided to quit that. I said, there are enough great bankers. What is this internet? I mean, I've got a Hotmail account, which I still use.
Which
So
you still use.
I
Yes.
still use. So if I've got a Hotmail account, I'm sure I can, conquer this internet world. So I jumped into Chai Time, 6 month flame out. Immediately got a job with now good friend that time, enfant terrible boss, Sunil Lulla at India.com. I was,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I was
Okay.
there for that was after his MTV stint. I was there for exactly a year before that kind of, flamed out. And then there was like, so in a year and a half, 4 years of steady banking job, 1.5 years of this great fun internet. I don't know what we were doing, trying to sell all kinds of, stuff.
Eyeballs.
Eyeball,
Eyeballs. Yes.
eyeballs, yeah. And yeah, and then suddenly there was the joblessness, and you're like, okay, now what to do? So for 3 months, we're like figuring out what needs to be done. This is late 2001. And then kept looking, and then there was this other new stuff which was coming up, which all of us use on the palm of our hands now is there was these mobile telephony companies. Already there was Vodafone and BPL in
Correct.
Mumbai,
Correct.
but there's opportunity. There were and of course MTNL, BSNL, which are, MTNL was there in Bombay, and there were these fourth licenses which were being auctioned off, and Airtel had won it. So I joined. I got an opportunity to be in the product development team to launch the Airtel services in the Western region, um, in the 4 states over here. And
Wow.
their product development was good fun, was basically good old days of astrology updates, cricket scores, dial,
Yes.
RBR,
Yes.
Bollywood
Vast.
gossip,
A vast
the
business.
vast business, which was great fun. So that was literally, the first brush with content. I mean, India.com, I was more on the business development side of it, but just sourcing all this content and did that. And also we were doing, some sort of tech plays in terms of integrating how to get early days of payments and things like that for value
Correct.
for recharging, because prepaid was the big growth at that time. So did that for a year and a half. And then, of course, they folded up the full Western regional setup, which was there in Mumbai. And they said, okay, now time to move to Delhi because that's where the head office is. And so I went to Gurgaon, like, did almost 6 months of up and down. And my daughter was just born. And I told my wife, should we look at moving? She said, you can leave if you want, but I'm not going anywhere. So then, okay, now we need to find something in Bombay because that was becoming, they kind of gave an option. Either you move or this up down doesn't work, for us. Just as that was happening, I get a call from our common friend Rajesh Tahil, who was at that time running Go, and he was taking I think a study sabbatical for a year,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
whatever.
Correct.
And
Correct.
whatever, went met him, then met Tariq, and suddenly got this job in the hot seat of what was then the coolest radio station, Go
Yes.
92.5 FM,
Yes.
and as the station head. And yeah, so that's where radio started, and an absolute great 4 years. I think that's where we interacted first.
Yes.
Good old days of radio, and radio was just absolutely a joy. It was a
Yeah.
joyride to go through the entire journey of the at that time the regulatory uncertainty. There's this crazy license fee which was being paid by everyone, and running a pure English channel was like was death. And then it turned into a Hindi English. In fact, before I joined, and then through a variety of from being a great listener of Anish Trivedi and gang. I get into the hot seat, and then working with great talent like Jaggu, Tarana,
Jagu, Tarana, and yeah, yeah.
Nair,
Epic, epic stuff.
Malini. It was just a great
Great time to be in radio.
great time to
Yes.
be in radio. By far the best and most fun medium, as such. So 4 years over there, and then we went from one station to 7 stations. Rajesh, of course, came back to head it. I was like the de facto number two, where we rolled out, 6, 7 different stations. And then while that was, moving well, I got this opportunity to jump into sports management. I mean, ICL, the first, before IPL came, there was ICL.
Okay, can I pause you there?
Yeah, sure.
Great, great summary in terms of your years leading up to radio. I just want to break there for a sec. What was the pitch back then to advertisers? Because radio was still, brand new as a medium. People were getting excited about FM. I was extremely excited, and like you said, I mean, I used to come there to do voiceovers.
Yeah.
Used to bump into you, and so what was the pitch back then? Was it an easy sell to advertisers back
No,
then?
no, it wasn't. Surely wasn't. I think it had started to get into the media plans. Till then, it was predominantly very heavy print and TV, of course.
Mhm.
Radio was like was a byproduct. I think initially they had tried to do a midday go combo, which didn't quite work because of whatever reasons. The listenership was a little different from what they were expecting it to be. So I think it was a tough ask, but I think that our greatest strength was all the advertisers and the media planners and everything were listening to us, as opposed to Mirchi or City or Red, because we were the cooler station rather than going full. In fact, you remember when all the radio stations launched in Mumbai, in early 2000, 2001, everyone started off with an English format. And very quickly they realized that, that just because on FM, it was the English that morning listeners of Times FM and Radio Midday was people like us, that was the large market. But I think it surprised everyone that the way radio penetrated so quickly, so fast across the pyramid,
True.
that all the mass that, and surprisingly, which was a big surprise to all of us, that the highest peak listenership of radio was between 10 and 12, AM, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., right? Because that was when, the housewives were listening. And otherwise, for us, traditionally, it was always drive radio is what was considered as
Drive
prime.
radio, yeah.
Still is,
Yeah.
in terms of rates and stuff like that. The largest listenership of people was, was at that time. So of course, it was a tough sell, and we would basically sell more on perception, and because, as I said, there's that personal bias always kicks in, and we were always a little bit more corporate and more, the CEOs we could invite to actually, or the marketing heads could actually come in and do an interview, on all these things. So wanted that, that 5 minutes of fame, as
Yeah.
such. So it was a tough medium, but it was a great medium, and we got an absolutely cracker of a team which could customize solutions for brands, as per their requirements. So the sales team plus the creative team behind it, or the programming team behind it, was the marketing team. Just, we were hand in glove, and we did tons of like crazy stuff, including we got Jaggu. We made money off Jaggu losing weight at least, I think, 3 times or twice in the 3 years, or twice in 2 years, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Safala, I still remember, was sponsoring that because, Jaggu wanted to lose
Yeah, I
weight.
remember that campaign. I remember
Yeah,
that
so
campaign.
we would turn
Yeah.
it into a, every time you want to lose weight, it would turn into a let's
Yeah.
make fun of it.
I actually got fooled once, and this is a true story. I actually got fooled once when uh, it was April Fool's. I don't know how I didn't catch it,
Oh my
but
God. Oh my
they
God.
said, we're dropping gifts outside National College. And I messaged Nikita and I said, how long is that happening for? And she just sent me a smiley back. And I was like, okay,
No, no,
pranked.
no, it's crazy. I think the April Fool's gigs that we did, the greatest was it was, I think, gifts being thrown by one of these starlets. And for the life of me, I'll probably get the name wrong. It was, I think, was it Meghna Naidu, or one of them was actually going to be. And we had people calling up saying, where is this helicopter? And we're saying, no, it's hovering over Tardeo. No, now it's near Dadar. Now it's near Kolaba. And there were callers coming and saying, we can't see it. It
Yeah.
was by far the greatest. It was great fun. You can't beat radio, as a medium to
Theater of the
have
mind.
fun.
Theater of the mind. Yeah.
Theater of the mind, and the ability to, you have an idea in the morning, and we used to have, whether it was Vishnu or Kobe or someone, just think of an idea in the morning, and they run it by me. Sometimes not even run it by me, because they were all fairly individual and smart in their this thing, and before, by lunchtime, it's executed,
It's up
and
on the air. It's
on,
up on
and
the air. Yeah.
it's
True.
nothing beats the pace of radio at that time, as a medium. Now, with the internet and Insta and everything, you can do,
Correct.
but you got, you overproduce and things like that, because it's visual, but because it was just so much fun to really play around with that.
Sorry. Did you ever get a call from a listener so weird you thought that FM stands for full madness?
Oh, we had some very passionate listeners who would, write emails and calls, and they would be like letters and things like that. At that time,
Yeah.
those cards would come, extremely passionate. And I remember the initial few years, I used to be very, I used to take or at least the first few months, I would take it very seriously, right? I mean, and the team would say, "Sir, this has been coming for a long while." And no, he's saying this. Maybe we should look into it. That was great. I think the guy called Firoz Siganporia.
Jagu Singanporia. Oh,
No,
Firoz Singanporia.
Firoz
Firoz
Siganporia. I mean, I
Singanporia.
see. I still know the name, like 20, 22 years.
Yeah.
So there used to be these very
And he
passionate
loved the
guys who,
jukebox with Mishal.
yeah. So
Loved, yeah.
they would just be very, with suggestions. You should do this. You should do that. So the emotional investment which was there with the brand at that time was at an all time, was
Correct.
we had by far the lowest listenership amongst the 4 stations which were there. Win had, I think, stopped by then, but the highest passion. So
Passion.
so the delta of listenership to passion was like highest amongst us. And I think for any media brand, if anyone is to actually do a study on the history of media brands over the last 50, 60 years, I'm fairly sure Go 92.5 FM will be right up there in terms of just the sheer passion that the audience had for us.
Yeah. So basically value versus volume. I think that really, and it came through, it influenced the content. It came through every sort of pore of the content, right? I mean, like you said, emotionally invested, people were doing crazy stuff. And I think the bonds between, I mean, you talk about Shehnaz Dinshaw, you talk about Mishal Verma, you talk about Jagu, Tarana,
Yeah.
they knew listeners by name,
Yeah.
right? And you have a bond. And I think that to some extent, I mean, I don't want to, throw shade on anyone, but I do think that that's missing, whether it's commercial compulsions or just the way, like you said, Insta has evolved and the crowded environment that radio is in today. It's just sad. But
Yeah, so I think no, I think, but the medium itself is, I think, taken a large has gone to the back seat. I think there are newer mediums. I mean, that time it was a new
correct.
medium, and I think it was truly run by. I would have been, I think, 35 when I took that over. Even younger actually, I think 30, 32, 33. So it was so kudos to Tariq Ansari, who just gave a very young team all the powers. And I think at peak we were, I mean, before we turned into, I mean, just when we till we were a single station, at peak were like 25 or 30 people all sitting in the Tardeo, office, those cubic, not
Yes,
cubic, those
yes.
galas which were there. And it was just great fun with a great mission that, and Tariq just said, go and have fun. And all of us really enjoyed what we were doing, and that really shown. And if you ask me, it's that I was there for 4 years, but that year and a half, 2 years, from 2004 to 2006 March, before it opened up into, like, winning more licenses, and then we got into this corporate structure, and BBC invested and all other things. Probably the best year and a half, 2 years of my. I mean, I'd put it right up there, along with the film stint over the last few years, which was there. I mean, it's right up there, and Tariq was just a
Yeah.
great boss. And it should be very funny because he was my boss. So the review would be, him reviewing me for performance on a monthly basis. But then he was also the RJ, right? T-man. So
So yeah, so now we can let the
we can let
secret
it
out.
be known.
Let the
Yeah,
secret out that the T-man is actually Tariq Ansari.
correct. Was him. So, then,
Yeah.
sweetly, he would do that Sunday morning show. And then when we would meet on a Monday or Tuesday, do you hear the show? What do you think of it? And I'm like, how do I tell
Yeah, it's a tough
now?
question to
No,
answer.
no, and also because he kind of he was very gracious and very, very nice to ask that question, because he had been doing radio for much longer than I had, and he knew,
Correct.
he knew it. But yeah, so I think the first 6 months I was like, yes, and then after that, once I learned enough, I kind of gave some feedback on certain things, and you'd be very diligently hear it, and a great guy,
So,
just
so there
absolutely.
was an anecdote I know of, which I was telling someone recently, that when Tariq would go for meetings, right, in a professional capacity, he would be in a building, assuming it's maker chambers or whatever, and he knew that a fan was in that same building, let it be a secretary or the boss or whoever. Most of the times it was the secretaries or the sort of mid-level
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah.
that were listening to him. He would sort of walk up to the lady and say, are you having a good day? And then the voice would click, right? Because you know him by voice, not by face. And I think
Uh,
that's the brilliant part about radio, right? You don't need, I
yeah,
feel sometimes RJs are overexposed today, you know,
yeah,
just because, like I said, compulsions and commercial compulsions, and they have to be on media. But RJ's, the anonymity was the brilliance, right? You're just a voice on the radio, and people can imagine whomever they want you to be,
yeah.
but the anonymity was the brilliance. But anyway, moving
Luckily,
on,
Tariq was, I mean, is a good looking guy. So I'm sure all of them would
is
be
a
like,
good looking guy. Yes, is a great
the
looking guy.
picture I had of him, kind of super. But just coming back to your point, I think, yeah, it's changed so much that I think majority of the radio stations now just have this very strong digital presence, and it's more of the digital presence which is driving them rather than pure radio revenues, and they're just trying to radio as the platform, or one of the platforms which it's paid for, or they have the reason to exist is because of that. But
Correct.
I mean, it's all moved on to Insta and
Video. Yeah.
video and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And so I mean, it used to be earlier you didn't have to have a face for radio, but now
Now you do.
you got you now you do. So
Yeah. So neither of us would get into radio. So like
neither of us
we
did.
just need to make peace with that, right? So if Go 92.5 came back today, would you cast podcasts as the villain or the rebooted sidekick?
I think I love podcasts. We're doing a podcast. I've been listening to podcasts now for the last 6, 7 years. And I think the talk radio was kind of frowned. I remember it used to be talk for not more than 90 seconds and get the damn music on, and if links, even if Jagu Tarana would extend further, I mean, if Jagu really managed to get a great fata, that would be fine, but not everything would be a slam dunk. And you would
Yeah,
be like, no. And you would get admonished by Vishnu or Kobe immediately saying, "Arey yaar, that went on too long." I think because of that paucity of space or time or the way the programming was, it would be, and because it's a music first, or perceived as a music first medium, it was perceived, talking was not something that was encouraged. But having said that, I mean, I think, I would have had definitely, podcast as pure, it would have been, top of my, on the strategy list. In fact, let me tell you, I don't know if you're aware, but there was a time when in 2005-6, when world space was just, at its peak,
yes,
they were trying to, they kind of commission and, Go 92 point radio midday. Effectively, we were like producers of some sports talk radio for world space. So Rishi K came back came into the fold of Go at that time, and of course he continues to rule the airwaves with Radio One now. But there was him, there was Glenn, we had Manish Valicha, who was one of the finalists of Harsha Ki Khoj, if I'm not mistaken. And I
hmm
remember we had to do 2 1-hour shows. One was on cricket and one was on general sports. And I remember the first few days when the recordings were happening, it was just so damn difficult for these people to talk for 1 hour. Because it was just, they were not used to that, after like they would talk, and then, suddenly Rishi would say, okay, how much has happened? And the sound engineer would say, 15 minutes. And she's like, my God, I've been talking for so long. So we did that. And yeah, so I think, I would, I mean, to answer your question, podcast would be a centerpiece in the entire thing, given all the other issues of license fees and, other rubbish that, that the industry can
correct,
do.
correct. Which is a good segue to our second segment, which is lights, camera, green light. Zee Studios and beyond. From FM to film, what's harder to manage? Flaky artists or moody RJ voiceovers?
Artists for sure. I think, RJs, just the morning RJs used to be very, moody because of that first hour, can I voice track rather than coming in at 7 o'clock, that kind of stuff. But no, of course, artists are by far, because it's a longer and very intense engagement when you're shooting something with them. And of course, the stakes are much higher. So artists definitely are difficult.
Got it. Got it. So you greenlit movies like Kesari and Gadar 2, bold picks. Was there ever a pitch so bizarre you had to check if it was a prank?
Uh, So KST we distributed. It wasn't much of a green light as such. Gadar too, I can tell you the story because it went on to make history. But while we were talking to Anil Sharma, who was the original director of 1 and 2, and and the kind of co-producer along with us, uh, and I've said this story on multiple platforms, and I'll say it again because it sounded bizarre. And I was like, so he says, "Ke Shariq Babu, आपको गदर का वैल्यू नहीं पता है, ये पिक्चर 500 करोड़ करेगी." And I sitting on the opposite end of that table on the hot seat, and I just I didn't show it to him, but in my head I went, yeah, of course I've heard this before. And true to his word, I mean, 3 years later, 2 years later, when the film released, it did cross that 500 mark. So it was uh, it was just an audacious statement, which because it worked, otherwise I would have given you that as an example of how people, because
A prank.
and I don't blame them, because everyone who comes to pitch a film, a writer, director, they have to believe that they're making a Sholay. You can't have that self-doubt, ki I don't know how it's going to be, because you have to exude that confidence. uh, the other, I won't say bizarre pitch, but the other very confident statement which was made was by Anurag Kashyap when we made Kennedy, and he said, "Okay, Shariq, I am so determined to make this movie so good that it goes to Cannes." And we did that. So we shot it in 22, just after the pandemic. It got greenlit in late 21, and 23 we were in Cannes as one of the walking the red carpet as an official, not a selection, but as an official invitation for a midnight screening of exciting directors. So that was really, so these are the two big
Wow.
ones which kind of came through, and both at opposite ends of the spectrum, right? You've got Gadar 2, which is as massy and
Correct.
and loud as it is, and then you've got an Anurag, no, crime noir film, like
Correct.
Ode to the City. I just, so it's been fun.
Correct. 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 In fact, I was just thinking while you were talking, I was just thinking do these film producers know a trick or two about manifestation that we could learn from? Because, voicing it sometimes, of course, a lot of producers would love to make 1,000 crores from their movie, but saying it with such confidence, and then obviously putting in the hard work to make it happen,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You put something in the ground, and then you say, I'm going to make it happen, right?
No, no, absolutely. I truly believe in that myself. I'll give you my own example. I'll just jump to, when I started Trigno Media. So initially when Trigno Media started along with partner Sajjad, and I know you want to talk about him,
Yes.
we started off, we were doing more in terms of, it started off after both of us had quit Studio 18, because again, there was a management shakeup over there. I was head of production, and he was head of revenue for the music rights, which used to be a big right in the late 2000s. So we started off predominantly doing a lot of marketing and distribution and advisory of films which were produced by by private funders, by directors, and then hoping that someone buys it. And the reality is that not more than 1% of most films are backed by of all films are backed by a corporate or a studio or whatever. So we would basically help doing that. While we were doing that as a regular thing, we chanced upon this rights of this foreign film called The Infidel, excuse me, which we acquired, and then we got it written. And what finally became Dharam Sankat Mein, um, we kind of manifested it. It was one of those journeys which just ensured that from the time we got the script, from the time we got the rights to getting the script, and once we had the actor Paresh Rawal on board, and we started talking to potential investors, the moment we got some sort of okay, we kind of just stopped doing all of the other consulting work which was there. And there was almost a period of 6 months where there was like literally no billing, us just waiting for this this it was like an all-in situation, saying that and we were talking to Viacom at that time, and they finally did produce it, but they had said yes, saying yes, we are interested. But the process from getting the like a verbal nod till getting the agreement to getting the money, everything, it was almost a 6-month period. And it was just focus. It used to be literally every Monday morning us calling the commercial head saying, "Hi, bro, what's up?" He's saying, "Yeah, it's going to happen. Don't worry." And you're like, "Okay, but this is there. Maybe you need to come and present this." We'd say, "Okay, when is it? We'll come and make the presentation." And we literally just, so you have to manifest it. You need to be a little,
I can just imagine Sajjad making those calls. Yeah.
yeah, he was at the forefront of it. And he was you knew him. He was always the more optimistic and the little,
Of course.
a little bit of a go-getter, and
Correct.
the more extroverted of the two. So yeah, so that was our job. And then for the rest of the week, we would be like, what to do. We would keep ourselves busy some way or the other, but basically just making sure that, hey, this has to happen. So yeah, you have to be a little delusional if you want to be in this business, especially when you don't have the money to make the movies or fund it yourself. And you've got to be even more delusional if you have the money and you're just making the film without any proper strategy on how you're going to release it.
True. True. Let's talk a little more about Sajjad. You worked with him at Studio 18 before Trigno happened. What made that partnership click, and any unforgettable war room stories that you want to talk to us about?
No, so I think just for the benefit of those who don't know Sajjad, I mean, I know both of us are talking as if
Correct.
everyone
Correct. Everyone knows in the whole
all the
world.
millions who will hear this. No, so Sajjad Chunawala was uh, he was ex MTV, ex Fever FM.
Incast before that, I think.
Yeah, and so I met him when I joined Studio 18 just after the cricket stint, which we kind of skipped. But the sports management, the ICL stint, as that was ending, I got an opportunity to I got hired by what was then Studio 18. And we used to sit next to each other. Our cabins were next to each other, and we used to have lunch together. And he was generally chilled guy to hang with. Um, so when we kind of when Studio 18 was folding up and we were asked to go, he was actually still there. Entire top management was asked to go because there was some big restructuring that Raghav Bell, all these media barons like to do restructuring and get rid of professionals and sell their companies or whatever.
Either consolidate or
No, and then play
yeah.
this big valuation game, and and they
Yes.
make the money where all of us have to suffer. And that was my first realization that the real money is in that valuation. All of us are very diligent, waiting for salaries where taxes are cut, and we carry our lunch boxes. And I mean, yes, you can do well, and you can live a very comfortable life. The real wealth comes in, when you're doing all this cutting and chopping of companies and valuation and and etc.
Or if
So
you're working at McKinsey, or if you're working at McKinsey,
yeah, whatever, yeah.
where you're
So
joining companies, breaking companies, and you're making money
yeah,
on
no. I mean,
not throwing shade on anyone, but there's
yeah,
a
yeah, not saying
force
share
about
names.
that.
I'm just saying that yeah,
Yeah.
but just the true wealth is always by the value creators, right? And
Correct.
who are
Correct.
actually who are running the company, who are owning the companies. No matter
Correct.
how much of bonus you get, yeah, I mean, they're very rich executives across the world, but the richest men are always the owners of those businesses. So in any case, so we started. So I quit first. I picked up a couple of projects which were more in that sports management zone. In the 2011 World Cup, I did some work for LG. Then I did something at the World Series hockey. And while all that was happening, Sajjad also said, okay, this new setup of Studio 18 is not working for me. So let's, I'm jumping on, jumping on board whatever it is that you're doing. So we started off Trigno Media. Like literally, we were sitting at, and the name also, we arrived at the name while sitting at the Yashraj office waiting to meet someone. It wasn't Ashish Patel, even though we wanted to Ashish Patel that time, but someone else. And we were like, get to figure out what the name should be. And, both of us absolutely loved math. So we said, let's go
Yeah.
trigonometry.
Trigonometry. Yeah.
Trigno Media came about because we didn't want any of these, cheesy names, which a lot of production houses or this thing were.
You could have called it SS
No,
production.
we didn't want it to be in our names and all that stuff that we were always against. We didn't want to be one color and one vegetable, none of that, other or food, this thing. So so that started, and with Sajjad it was started with that, and he was always more. I think we complemented each other because he was a little bit more on the outgoing, exuberant sales front, very optimistic attitude, and I'm a little bit of as my family calls me, I'm a little bit of a I mean, I'm kind of like, why are you so pessimistic about these things? I'm just a realist kind of a person.
Mhm.
Don't get too excited with, even a half prospect, and like all kangware, ye to ho gaya, we'll get it done, and this will happen. And you need that because in this industry, there's just so much of up and down. Within the media space, you're never, either if you're producing or you're directing or your talent or you're trying to find work, there's this constant up and down. There's no steady path. So you always need to
Yeah.
have that extra level of enthusiasm that, hey, it's all going to be good because the good,
Yes.
next good thing is just around the corner. And that
Around the corner.
kept us going. And even the Dharm Sankat mein, the film that we did, it was him saying, "Arey yaar, these rights are there, let's just acquire it." Not that it, as I told you, we basically paid 1 lakh rupee to, just to option the rights, which wasn't that much money. But, still to pay something which is greenfield was his idea. He said, let's just do it now. What is the big deal? Let's just get it done. And I was like, chalo, let's do it. And then the entire process, we were involved. So I was more in terms of the getting things done. And he was always that, array, jumping from one thing to the other and trying to get it done. So it was just a great partnership in that sense, which continued till the film, released.
So Trigno Media was born in 2015, and obviously the process started much earlier, but it released in 2015, I think.
Dharm Sankat mein released in 2015. We started the
Yes.
company in 2011 mid to end.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So the first film obviously released in 2015, which is Dharam Sankat Mein, the year that Sajjad also passed away. So
yeah.
was that a moment of pride, grief, or both?
No, it was surreal. It's like, you to just get a film across the finish line and get it released in the theaters. It released on April 10th, 2015. It was just a great, there was a very joyous, everyone's happy and thinking, hey, we finally made it. And and you think that this film will work. It was coming on the back of Oh My God, which was a super success for Paresh Rawal, and we're like, this is going to work. Unfortunately, met with very, decent reviews, but not at the box office. Um, and almost immediately, this will be April 10th, as I said, the film release. I think by the end of April, when we were like this winding down and, saying, okay, now this is all good and settling accounts with Viacom and everything, Sajjad fell ill. He fell ill with jaundice. And then, through a series of events, by the end of the year, he passed away. So what we thought would be a takeoff was like in 2015 with whatever little bit of money we made on the film, plus having a release under the belt and a few other scripts under development. And, we're talking to some of the writers and director friends and things like that. It just kind of, everything came to a bit of a halt because of the illness. And the fact that, when you're working on twin engines, we were reliant on, him doing certain things, me doing certain things, and that didn't really fire that year. And then once he passed, then whatever money was in the bank had to be kind of, given to Charlotte girls. Then automatically you get to a situation where if you're sitting on 100 rupees, now suddenly you've got like 50 rupees only. And you've got one engine which is gone. So what is it that you need to do to do it? So it really, it was a great, it's a crazy lesson in life that you can have the highest of high and the lowest of low all within a span of like 7-8 months, and it'll come and hit you, out of nowhere, and you need to just yeah. And then, so then to crawl back up was a bit of a challenge. I mean, we continued to pitch. We made a short film for Sony Live almost immediately within 6 months of him passing. Did a lot of videos which I myself directed along with other colleagues. We had a small 3-4 member, one finance, one production, one creative, along with me. A lot of videos for the Miss India. We worked with the Times of India group. A lot of Sahara group was trying to make a comeback on videos, on educational video, the Baiju equivalent of classroom sessions. So created some few thousand hours of those videos by having teams set up in the different classrooms in different, in North and in Mumbai. We shot all that stuff. So we were doing all that stuff, and then really trying to get our feet back post that. And the big project that we kind of initiated was along with Sameer, Nair, and Applause. What finally became Scam. That was a discussion.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. Very interesting story about Scam 92, right? 1992.
Yeah. So Scam was so Applause had just been launched by Sameer, and he had seen Dharam Sankat Mein. I know Savri for many years, his wife, and Sameer's a lovely guy. I mean, never really knew him.
We should also tell the audience that who the mass audience that's viewing this across millions of homes, that Sameer Nair is the guy
The
behind
KBC and the Kyuki Saas, and yeah, so
Kyuki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi, KBC,
correct.
Coffee
So
with Karan.
absolutely. So he's the maverick, the
He's the
genius,
maverick, yeah.
and lovely guy. So he was starting Applause. So and I think he was, early days 2017. So I go across, meet him, and he says, what is it that you're planning to do? So I mean, I thought I'll go. When I was meeting him, I was getting an opportunity. I would go with some pitch ideas. And I was like totally taken in by true crime at that time. And I was watching People versus OJ on. We used to all like see that pirated those big dumps on our hard drives. So OJ I had just seen, I think, literally a few weeks before that. So I went to him saying that, we should do true crime and look at Syed Modi and, Ranga Billa and all these kind of, gruesome murders and, high profile cases which have happened. And while we were sitting and having chai, in conversation like how you and I are having right now, it just moves into why don't we do financial crime, and and then while he's talking about things that Harshad Mehta And we're like, yeah, that was a crazy scam, and it's quite a story. So he says, I'd met Sucheta Dalal a few weeks ago or a few months ago at some conference, and because I just moved into this thing, her card is lying somewhere away. Let me locate it. And he found her card, and while we're talking and having a second cup of tea or whatever, he sends an email to Sucheta saying, "Hi, this is who I am, so and so. We'd like to come and meet you. Please let me know what's happening." And we're like, "Yeah, great," and leaves it like that. And I finish the second cup of tea,
Wow.
goodbye,
It gives me
and
goosebumps,
yeah,
man.
and I leave. Leave it at that. Cut to 2 days later, Samir calls up. He says, "Hey, she responded, and she's saying to come and meet." I said, "Okay, when is it?" So he says, "Whatever, next Monday or whatever." Within 3 4 days, we go and meet her, and she's this fantastic lady, absolutely poker face. She walks into her office is in Dadar, and we walk in, and she's meets us. She says, "Hi, hi, okay, you're Samir. Hi, you're Shariq. Okay, I know you, Samir. Or I heard of you or whatever." They're having a conversation, and he says, "We're looking to do the Harshad Mehta story," and she very stoically says, "Huh, yeah, right, okay. I'll have to check if the rights are available." In the last 20 years, we've sold the rights, or the last 15, 18 years, whatever it was in 2017. Um, we've sold the 20 years. We've sold the rights to at least 5 different set of producers. They've optioned it, and they within 3 years it comes back to us because nothing ever gets done. You want it, please go ahead and take it. And Samir and me are looking at each other saying, okay, this is she trying to, what is she trying to say? Cut to, we proceed, we get the rights done. The rights, of course, in Applause's name, and I'm just like not even confirming because the IP had to be with Applause. I'm there for all the meetings. And once that is signed and the payments are done, Samir is saying that, okay, now who should we get as a director? I think Hansal Mehta was also pitching some different things to Samir. And Samir says, I met Hansal the other day. He came to office. It's quite interesting. He's quite hungry, and he has worked in the markets in the late 80s, early 90s. So why don't we get him on board? I said, yeah, okay. So there's a tripartite agreement between Trigno, Hansal, and Applause, which is signed. Then we get the writers. Uh, Sumit and Saurav onto, so the writing room was, in my office in Khar, and all the initial research was all done by me and the team, and my team along with the writers and Hansal, and we're getting all that thing done. And then I get a call from Puneet Goenka, who was my ex-boss at Zee in February of 2018. And then, so when I get that offer at Zee Studios, the only thing I tell Puneet is saying that, he asked me what's happening. So I said, sir, struggle kar rahe hain, and every producer is always struggling in this industry. So so I tell him the only thing which is happening right now, which is big, is this, I'm developing the show for Applause. And the writing is at a very early, still at a research stage. So, if you need to move on this, and if I'm getting it, I need to make sure that, I need to get Samir to okay this breakup as such, because otherwise it's a thing. So finally, go to the interviews and everything. I get the offer in April. And I remember once the offer comes, I go to Samir's house literally with some pastries. It's like a breakup. I'm like,
Break
Samir,
up, yeah.
come and
Yeah.
meet you.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah,
Can we
come.
just be friends?
Yeah, yeah. So it's not you, it's me.
It's not you, it's me. Yeah.
It's not you, it's me. And he's very nice. And he asked me, what is the role? And the moment I tell him this is what the role is, and he's like, no, no, you must do it. I mean, it's a role bigger than what I have presently. So, please go ahead and do it. And then finally, we part ways, and I make sure that the project is handed over and everything is given to the next set of people to take it forward. But in my 6 years in Zee, the 1 week where I was like, shit, why did I take this job, was in October 2020 when Scam drops, and it's this instant hit. And I'm like, shit, this was my film. This was my project, and it would have been my so for that 1 week I was like totally depressed. They were very nice to give me like a thank you credit, on the screen, which people still ask me. I mean, not now, but for almost a year till after the show came out, you were saying that, why are you thanked on it? And then I would give everyone the same story. So now
Yeah.
it's
So
out.
now it's on record. So you can just
So
take this
next time
clip and
I
pass
will
it on
I
to
will
them.
forward
Yeah.
it to anyone who
You can
wants.
do that. You can just forward it to them.
Correct.
Excellent. So, I just want to ask you, I mean, brilliant story. You've got so many of these anecdotes. When we caught up, you were telling me about even how Dharam Sankat was made. And that's a lovely story, which I then narrated to my mother-in-law, who's a big OTT fan,
Mm.
and she's the force behind Hottie with Autie, which is what I came up with, where kind of recommends every week what to watch.
Yeah.
So are you a fan first or a producer?
Fan.
Fan.
Yeah, I think the filmy Keeda was there from like early 80s. I think like वो कहते हैं ना होश संभालते ही एक वो पिक्चरों का एक जो शौक था. And I think really when I moved to Bombay to study, I grew up in Cal. When I moved to Bombay and I was in the hostel, the NM hostel in Juhu for about a
Yeah.
year and a half before my folks moved in and we moved into an apartment. In fact, even when I moved in, with parents, there was not a single movie from 1990 to 93 Hindi movie which I have not seen. Between Chandan, Gaiety Galaxy, Bahar Cinema, Metro, Eros, so it was just ingrained to watch movies and love movies. And I remember outside college, I think when Channel V or whatever had just started, there was Ruby Bhatia doing, questions about
Yes.
who's your
Yes.
favorite and all that, the Vox Pops. I
Yes.
was in NMIMS at that time, and I remember this is in 94, 95, 94, I think. And she asked me, who's your favorite hero? And I remember saying Govinda because I just loved him in Aakhi and Shola or Shabnam, and this is when he was at his peak. I mean, his peak came even later, but both were just absolutely fantastic. 92, 93, and then of course, rest of 90s he kind of ruled. And Channel V was the choice, this thing of choice. All of us
Yes.
would watch
Yes.
in those days between
Correct.
MTV had not yet launched. And the number of my friends from Calcutta or others who were studying in other cities saying, bro, I just, they called up and saying, called up, huh? There was no other way of communicating, not spoken to them for like a few years, a few months before that. Did you just say Govinda is your favorite actor? I said, yeah, and full pride. So I can say I was amongst the first few ones to publicly declare love for Govinda. So you can imagine how filmy I was. So always fan first, always.
True. True. We would ask you to sing a Govinda track, but then we would really not be,
We'll be struck down.
interested to it. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, two things I realized. One is you are a senior of mine because I also went to NM college, not NMIMS, but NM. So same trust. So that's great. The other thing,
Which year did you graduate?
sorry, which year did I graduate? 99.
Okay, so you're 6 years younger. I
Yes.
was 93, yeah.
Yes. Yes. I don't look 6 years younger, but I am 6 years younger. The other thing, Sharik, is, you know, this show or, podcast, vodcast, whatever you want to call it, is not just for entertainment, it's for information, to be informative as well. What's your honest advice to people who have concepts or scripts they want to pitch? And do they approach producers directly, or do they hire a lawyer first and then present the script through a lawyer? What's
No,
the
it's,
Indian process of getting a script, or do they write a book, publish the book, and then present that book as a bound script to a producer, which obviously gets adapted? But this is the little information I gathered from the Netflix site, where Netflix clearly says, don't approach us with scripts, um, come through an attorney and then submit it, and we will get back to you, kind of thing, right? Because even there was a panel discussion that you were a part of, that I was in the audience, and one of the our good friend Anil Vanwari's panel discussions, which are always fun to view, never
yeah,
fun to be on, but but fun to view. But there it was a room full of script writers. is
yeah.
is what I later figured, right? And you were giving them some really good advice. So what's your advice for budding script writers? How do they get their scripts across to producers?
So there is no easy answer to that. There is no one route to it. I don't think you need lawyers or anything because I myself don't have a personal lawyer or whatever. I don't think Netflix meant that. I don't know. Maybe they were paraphrasing. Maybe
Yeah.
you're paraphrasing what they're saying. See, the point is that anyone getting into this business. It is a non-stop hustle. It never ends. You could be, you know, at the pinnacle of success and then one failure and then you're not, for you to get back, you're only as good as your last film, and for you to get that first film in whatever capacity itself is extremely difficult. So my advice to, and what I have been doing over the last 6 months or a year or whatever, um, I've become a lot more responsive to people on LinkedIn, for example, because earlier when they would write to me when I was running Zee, it was there was always this official hat which was there. So anything I would respond to them, or I would direct them to someone else, or just actually not going to LinkedIn for a long time because it just stuffed with so many requests that it's very difficult to answer all of them and satisfy them in a non um, commitment way, if you know what I mean. Because one response to me, then they start thinking, hey, Zee is going to be funding my film. So now what I do is engaging with a lot of people with what the reality is, right? So the reality is that increasingly, when I made Dharm Sankat Mein, I made it with zero money. As I said, it was 1 lakh rupees for for the for acquiring the rights. And then, of course, we paid a larger, I think 14, 15 lakh rupees when the film actually got made to the rights holder. And we paid the writers, we got all the writers, and whatever we finalized them for, that was the only expense, and the chai, khana, pina that would, writers' room would require when they would come once a week to discuss what was happening. So in under 5 or 6, 7 lakh rupees as producers, I had like 100-page script ready, which then we went shopping to everyone. There were producers, there was funders who had come from Noida, from Surat, from Jaipur. We met them all, and Sajjad, was, let's do it, let's do it. And I'm like, no, let's get formal funding. Let's get, where we know the film will release, because we know what the challenges are. Someone will, and a lot of the films, these private funders will start, and then they won't have the money to complete, and then you're stuck in between because your costs are linked to that, your remuneration is linked to that. So I think just for anyone who's a writer or wants to, or a director and has got a script, you just have to have a banging 100-page document ready. It just has to be banging, and what I used to tell everyone is saying that, and you have to keep figuring out ways of how to reach people. There is no easy answer. Um, Whether it is through producers, like projects, like, I mean, people who can help in setting up those meetings. A lot of people are taken for a ride by saying, okay, I'll get you to meet so and so person, you pay me so much to get this thing done. There are enough brokers and fixers in the industry which are very which are available. But what happens that if you're pure talent, you'll cling on to anything. Just make sure you don't fall into that financial trap of paying anyone anything for whatever. Saying that this is my document, make sure it's registered, make sure it's the 20th version of the script that you're actually sharing, because get it vetted, get it heard by multiple friends, family. Let them shit on it and say what works, what doesn't work. Don't get emotional about but I'm this is so great. Everyone thinks that they've written a great. There's not a single person who'll come and say, I'm not happy with the script, but I still want to pitch it. Um, you have to have that document, just has to be solid. And the other thing which I've seen is that if the document, not there aren't those many solid things, right? I mean, I did more than 100 movies in Zee, and one was also because you had to feed the beast of Z5 in terms of they wanted a lot of content. So a lot of things go through which seem okay or average enough, but that they'll find a market. It might not succeed, might not be big, but enough in that typical average. So there's a lot of average stuff which gets made in any case, or had to get made because of this huge volume of content which was there, which actually we are seeing is a full downturn now, saying that a lot of that has got eliminated, and people are now struggling to figure out what to make. Still a lot of averages coming out, but those averages are only now being
That feeds the long tail, right? I mean, that feeds
the long tail. Yeah, absolutely. Feels a long tail. But I'm saying now also there's a lot of average stuff going through the pipeline, but it's not everyone's taking that fail-safe attitude, okay, but this is produced by so and so or directed by so and so. It has XYZ actor. So if it doesn't work, I as a commissioning person said, hey, I ticked all the boxes, but if XYZ can't deliver a success, that's not my fault, right? I mean, it was all so you just, I mean, not to discourage anyone, but in this business, you need to just continuously hone your skill. You've got a camera, you've got friends who are actors, you've got this, keep shooting, do not wait for this great thing of commissioning to happen. Keep building your portfolio however you can. You can assist, you can shoot your own Instagram, if you're a director, even if you just keep building work, so that if tomorrow, kind of, if someone looks you up saying that, hey, I found this thing which is halfway interesting, but can he direct? You're like, okay, I've gone to this person's YouTube channel or Insta, and the way he shot Bombay Rains driving from Andheri to Juhu is interesting. There's a story
Very
you
nice.
know, he can.
Very nice.
So just
Yeah.
keep at it in terms
Yeah.
of
Build a body of work. Build a body of work.
build a body of work, because you can build a body of work. I mean, 10, 20 years ago, to build a body of work, you needed a camera. And that camera,
Correct.
even if it was a, like a DSLR, would cost 40, 50, 60,000 bucks, which not everyone could afford, right? So now with
True.
any quality of phone, just build the body of work and you have to keep knocking on doors, whether you're an artist, whether you're an actor, whether you're a writer, whether you're a director, you keep knocking, knocking, knocking. What you're trying to do is probably the toughest it's the toughest business in the world. Not more than one or two. I mean, in the acting, even lesser succeed. But even in the writing, I think if you look at a percentage, those who get a chance to either get their film made or their series made or directed or whatever, it's a very small percentage. And you need to be so passionate and driven and have a self judgment on your own talent. Just because you've written great essays and people say, hey, you can write, it's not necessarily. Read a lot of scripts,
Yeah.
watch the movies and then read the scripts. I mean, I was not I came into the creative, I mean, ever since Studio 18, I would just read. Now also, when people come and narrate, I'll take maybe a 5-minute narration if it's not, or a 10-minute narration. But I say, leave the script with me. If I'm anything which I greenlit, I would have read the script and said, okay, this kind of makes sense for me, because on paper it's making sense. Because there could be someone could be a great narrator, but that document is not as interesting as the person's this thing. And you need to have the balance of both. But till that document is not A1, it should not move ahead. And we've had issues in the past where and Dharm Sankat Mein itself, we always knew that the climax, there was some of an issue, and we kept thinking, we'll solve it as we go along. Now, when I look at it, I was like, we were naive. And not just in Dharm Sankat Mein, so many other films that I myself worked on, where it was moment you shove that we'll solve for this, everything is working, but this bit we'll solve for later, it it
Doesn't happen.
it falls flat. You have to fix everything right there and then. The number of people say, also, if you're getting a chance to meet someone senior who's in the position to green light, or at least shove it up the take it above the into the pyramid, in terms of from like a junior creative person to a senior to the head of department to to the CEO, or to the green lighting this thing. If you're meeting a junior person, make sure you meet them when you have something which is ready to give. Don't just say, I've met you and this is a 5-pager. And if you like it, then I'll write this script and I can develop it further. No one's got time for that development anymore, right? I mean, you should be, so you invest in yourself and get that thing written. It's only if you're a writer of some repute and you've got like 5 different projects which you can select from, you'll work on what you're getting paid for. But if it's something that you want to do, make sure that you have that ready to submit within 1 week of that meeting. It shouldn't be, okay, yeah, but it's still English dialogues. I'm yet to write Hindi dialogues. You see how it is. So you have to give that confidence, saying, I'm ready with this. This is version, 1.10, 10th version of the same script. Once you're okay with it, whatever additional needs to be done, we'll look into that. But this is, not a first. Make sure there are no spelling errors. Make sure there's, simple things like that. Make sure it's formatted
Yeah.
correctly.
Makes sense. Makes
A
sense.
simple thing like, make sure it's in final draft, right? Make sure it is written in a manner or in a document format which people are used to reading in a script. Many times I used to get like those long, like literally it's written in Word.
Legal documents.
Yeah,
Legal documents.
it's written in Word, and nothing wrong with it, but there's this. It just shows that you don't know what the standard practice is, and I think that is important. You need to ensure that basic stuff happens if you are a writer or a director trying to pitch work.
Great. Great. I think fantastic feedback, and hopefully, we'll spark some scriptwriters out there, and the next big Masi Gadar will come off this.
Of
I'm,
course,
I'm going to do something really filmy, okay?
yeah,
Because I'm inspired by what you said. So, Samir Nair. I've
yeah,
been trying to get Samir Nair for the last 1 year
mm,
because I thought I should start Chai with the CEO with the guy who was behind Coffee with Karan, right?
yeah,
We had a whole promo written out as well. And I gave one line to Karan to
yeah.
say, okay, in my mind, right? So I'm going to ask you to ask Samir or vouch for me that I don't bite on this show. So Samir should consider giving me half an hour of his time or 45 minutes or
I will.
1 hour, 2 minutes No, I want you to say it. I'm going to cut this clip and send it to him.
I will, Samir Nair, please get onto this show with Sheldon. He's a wonderful chap, and you'll have fun having this conversation with him. Um, a lot of industry folk really value your opinions and look up to you. So I think it's the more you are on platforms of different scale and sizes where people can discover you or just stumble upon what you have to say. I think that will always help. So, Samir, do it.
Do it, man. Do
Yeah.
it. So excellent. Thank you very much. I had some rapid fire and all, but I'd like to end it on this note. Shariq,
Okay.
thank you so much. We've come up on the hour. Won't take any more of your time. You can get back to, the important work of the day. But really, really heartfelt thanks for giving me time at such short notice, and great catching up with you.
No, it is. Thanks so much again, Sheldon. I think you seeing Dharam Sankat me a few weeks back,
Yes. Yes.
propelled you to, write to me and we reconnected. It's always good to catch up with old associates and friends. And, you're all older. I don't know if you're wiser, but I think it's just important to, I think important to just give back and let people know the journeys that because I think especially for young people entering the workforce now, there's just so much of especially in our industry, and I think this industry is increasingly going to find it very difficult. I mean, there won't be enough corporate salaried kind of jobs, right? In terms like like the likes that we had, in terms of whether it was
Correct.
in the MTV or or radio or the studios and the multiple broadcast channels that were there. Uh,
Everything is being disrupted. Correct.
Everything getting disrupted so fast. So I think it's like an oral history of what happened over the last 20 years, which was literally the golden run. Not to sound like a doomsday, I'm saying that there's a different kind of a golden run, and there's different kind of
Yeah.
stuff happening now with youngsters increasingly, with Insta and YouTube, and people are forging their own paths and becoming, which is great. I mean, it's something that it really is a young person's game, and they are the ones at the forefront of that. A lot of us are now trying to adapt in terms of what to do. I mean, I thought definitely I'm in the last quarter, not last quarter, yeah, last quarter of my career or whatever. But anyone mid-career, and and saying that late 30s, early 40s, it does get difficult in terms of what to do next if you've been in the industry all along, because it just moved so fast, and so it's become a different beast and very difficult. And with AI coming in and all the disruption which is going to come in because of that, there'll be even more this thing. So all the best to all the up and comers, and more so for the mid careers, because I think that really is the biggest challenge.
Correct.
Is for
Correct.
is for that cohort of 38, 39 till 46, 47, when you should be literally hitting your peak. And as I was telling you, in my journey, I mean, I started my own company at that in that at that age, and what should have been like great money making opportunity for me at that time really didn't pan out the way it did, because of variety of reasons, right? With Dharam Sankat and Sajjad, and everything which happened. Uh, but I did get a second lease of life at 47. I became CEO of Zee Studios, 46, 47, and that uh, kind of propelled me back into the that second inning as such, which in probably the the biggest studio seat in the the biggest seat in the film business. So I think not everyone gets that chance, but just to say that, hey, there's just lage raho, something or the other will,
Lage raho.
yeah, lage raho. You just have to be dogged in whatever you're doing, and if you're talented and lucky, it will happen. So luck plays a big part in it, but you just have to be focused. So be at it.
Super, super. Thank you, Sharik, so much.
You're
There is
welcome.
a special surprise for you, but I'm going to let you experience that once you watch the final edit, because
That's
I'm very bad at handling Zoom and my producers at work today. So I
done. I look
he's
forward to
15
seeing
years
it.
old, and he's not at work, sorry, he's at school.
Uh,
So I am going to let you wait till the edit comes out and listen to
okay.
it. I hope you have a tear in your eye because that was the intention.
So sweet.
But thank you so much. Thank you so much. And God bless.
Thanks, Shariq. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Voting green lights for total from the universe. Center shock. He walks in like a plot twist, late but on cue, with the coffee in one hand and a script or two. He's seen the spotlight, the edits, the cuts, but the best thing he ever cast was us. While he's building a world out of dreams and debate, he still knows your coffee order and your Netflix taste. 'Cause he's more than green lights and cinema gold. He's the hoodie you steal when the night gets cold. He's the calm in the madness, the beat in the track. And every time he leaves, he finds his way back. So Toro, here's proof from above. You married a blockbuster kind of love. He's pitched to the suits, survived critics and trends, but you laugh at the end of the day. That's what meant. He's produced some of Bollywood's finest affairs, but still stumbles over socks in your salon chair. Behind every mogul with media plans is a man who still warms up your cold hand. Yeah, he's more than deadlines and premiere nights. He's the one who dims his world to keep yours bright. He may juggle a dozen scenes on his reel, but you're the only frame that ever feels real. So Toro, here's your love song's chorus. He's always been your backstage star among us. Through the red carpets, the boardrooms, the noise, he still laughs like that dorky intern boy. And no matter the credits or fame he's known, he'll tell anyone you're his home. He's more than the press kits, more than the fame. He trade box office numbers just to hear your name. From the day you first smiled to this very line, he's been scripting his life as your lifetime spine. So Toro, just know from below or above, you married a man who was made to love.